What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I am back because we had day 14 of training camp today. This was our first practice against the the Falcons. Our first joint practice with the Falcons, and there's some good, there's some bad, and so we're gonna get right into it. First off, though, one of the bad things, unfortunately, is that linebacker Sam Eguavin has actually tested positive for COVID, and so he has been placed on the COVID list. So that's unfortunate. And there are, I would think that there's likely some other players going to be put on the list for, the contact tracing purposes. I would imagine. I can't imagine that just one single person is going to legitimately test positive and nobody else be put on the list for at least having come into contact with him. So, but, we'll see. And I don't know his vaccination status, but the Dolphins had at least 85% of the team vaccinated, from my understanding, so he could very well be one that was vaccinated. But look, I mean, at this point, the conversation is no longer, can people who are vaccinated get the thing, spread it, get sick, go to the hospital, or die? That anybody who's tries to have a conversation and says that is not the case is not living in reality, because the massive surge that Delta Plus and Lambda variants are causing in this country are not strictly focused on the unvaccinated. There are plenty of vaccinated people out there that are getting it, spreading it, getting sick, going to the hospital, and dying. So I mean, that's just facts, and it's pretty easily verifiable too. But anyway, that's not the point of this video. It just, obviously, COVID is going to have an effect on this season. To what degree, we don't know. Obviously, it didn't stop them from having a preseason and off-season program. So that's obviously one difference, and at this point we expect to have full stadiums, so from that perspective it doesn't seem like it's going to have an effect. But just real quick, one more thing on that topic, on the COVID topic, is man, these stadiums, these packed stadiums, are just gonna be spreaders like nobody's fucking business, man. So, one thing I do want to say, too, because I know some people are going to be going out to these games, people that I, talked to even, recently with my, engagement with the community there on Reason's show, right? Like, Reason plans to go to a game or two. I know Doug's going to be, Doug's going to be going to a game. Look, man, just be careful. And, I recommend keeping your damn mask on. I wouldn't recommend going to begin with, because I think that's too big of a risk for something that, as much as I love football and as much as I love my Dolphins, potentially catching a virus that could kill me is not worth going to see them live. I can certainly sit at home and watch them on television and be perfectly fine with that. So, but that's just me, man. If you guys, if you've been vaccinated and you think you're going to be fine and everything, well, I hope so. Knock on wood. I'm not a religious person, but my thoughts go out to you, and I certainly hope that you guys stay safe. But it is a massive risk, and, these big events, large gatherings of people, are going to prove to be massive, massive spreaders. And unfortunately, the problem is, and this will be the final thing that I say on it, because I do want to move into the actual Dolphins topics that we have. But the problem is that the Delta Plus and Lambda variants are already proving to have a high resistance to the vaccines. But the more they continue to circulate within the population, and especially with people who have the vaccines, it is going to get inside of them, the virus. They will contract the virus, and then it will continue to mutate. So the variants that come next are going to be even more resistant to the vaccines. At some point, the vaccines will not be useful at all anymore. And I know people hate to hear that. I mean, you know, and it goes completely against the narrative that's put out by the people in power and at the top that control the narrative, the media and everything, blah, 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 right? They'll tell you everything's good and you just need to get back to work and, you know, go to restaurants and go to fucking concerts. And, you know, we saw Lollapalooza was completely packed. Guarantee that shit was spreading like wildfire in that shit son of a bitch, right? And I mean, but it's, again, the data is clear, the data is obvious. We're having outrageous surges throughout the entire country right now. Anyway, let me get off that because I really went into it. I don't talk about it that much because it's not, you know, football. But it is related, right? And it is going to have an effect. So hopefully for a little while I can, you know, avoid having to talk about that. I mean, there certainly is plenty of other stuff. So let me get to it. I am going to, as usual, go through, you know, the available resources that I do have to me. And so that's going to be Alan Poupar's articles. There are 3 of them that I'm going to go through with various bits of information that, you know, I hope you enjoy. Unfortunately, you know, if I was able to get multiple sources and, you know, if I could afford those, you know, subscriptions to the other articles, you know, the Sun Sentinel, etc., then, you know, I would read through them prior to making my video. I would compile, you know, just all of the important information, you know, and I would cut out the repetitive shit so that way I could just give you all of the you know, everything, right? But make sure to give you also the different perspectives from these different well, that's one thing though too, is even a lot of the repetitive takes will often have different perspectives, you know, based off of the writer. But anyway, I would condense it and you know, give you all of the information, but unfortunately I don't have access to that stuff. So here we are. I have Alan Poupar's articles. The first one, Tua topics: missing his top wide receivers, joint practices, and the Fry connection. Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins were back practicing with and against another team Wednesday, this time the Atlanta Falcons, at the Baptist Health Training Complex on the grounds of Hard Rock Stadium. Because remember, this is a home game. Our next preseason game, though, is an away game. It's another away game, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. This came 4 days after Tagovailoa had an impressive outing against the Chicago Bears in the preseason opener at Soldier Field, but Tua kind of hinted he actually has gotten more out of the joint practice than he did in the game last Saturday. And for the most part, that actually makes a lot of sense because, especially considering the fact that he only got to play a few series. It's not like he played an entire half or the entire game, right? So, you know... but there certainly were some valuable things to take from that game, particularly on that interception, man, right? You got to throw it when you see it open. You had Shaheen wide open for the touchdown. Just throw it. Don't go through, you know, there's no point in going through your reads, right? And to me, that's what he was doing, right? He was going through his reads, and it looked like he was trying to specifically get Waddle involved. But... you know, he went through his reads. He didn't like what he saw, you know, with the Waddle route. And then he came back too late to Shaheen, which allowed, you know, the 2 defenders to get around him, particularly the safety that was able to come up and make a play on the ball. So, you know, definitely valuable stuff, but, you know, that totally makes sense, right? Like, because you had more time in practice. You did a lot more stuff, right, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I think joint practices are really good because you get to see a good glimpse of the packages that these coaches have installed with the players and the defense and with their team. That's what he said Wednesday. Continuing on, I would say when it comes more time to the preseason games, they obviously don't want to show everything. Us too, it's the same, and I think it's like that around the league. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because they don't want it to be on film, right? So But even still, I would think that in practices they probably still don't show a lot, but they probably do still show more for certain because it's not being taped, right? Or, well, I mean, I guess sometimes there are, media and stuff there that do take like some clips, but they probably screen everything and they're super tight on that or whatever on what is allowed to be put out. Right. But when especially when it's nationally televised, but either way, right, that game, all the games get taped. So that gets put on film for other people to see. So during the games, they're going to be relatively vanilla with their play calling in the preseason, right? Both teams, all teams, right? He's right about that. The Falcons came down for 2 days of joint practices with the teams going against each other again Thursday ahead of their preseason game at Hard Rock Stadium on Saturday. I think their DC does a great job to a set, and their defense overall. They do a great job disguising looks. They have a lot of good players on their team. They do a great job communicating what they want to do and what they want to accomplish. I think today for us offensively, we've got to be a lot better operationally, getting on the ball quicker, seeing what the defense is giving us and playing. If you look at their 2-minute drive, I think they did a really good job from an operational standpoint. So that's something we can also look at and continue to learn and grow. Not just our side of the ball, but both sides of the ball. So I think what he's actually talking about there, which we will get into, and so far from what I've seen from reports, this offensive line had another rough showing. And, a lot of people were like, and I get it, right? People were saying, oh, the Dolphins offensive line just struggled, man, because that Bears defensive front is like top 5. Okay, I get it. I don't think that's the only reason. But, and then, to be fair, and then a lot of people are like, okay, well, let's see what happens against the Falcons who have well, I'm hearing so far that this offensive line has had some significant struggles. So, look, man, I've been saying it. My top 3 concerns are this offensive line, the depth on this team, and then injuries/COVID. And so obviously if we start having injuries and COVID pile up, which we've already had way more than I would care to have to this point in the preseason, then the depth is really going to get tested, right? And I'm really concerned about our depth across this team. Right? Across the team. Not just in one spot, but across the team. And then that offensive line, no matter what though, that offensive line could prove to be the Achilles heel for this team. But yeah, I mean, if we, knock on wood, man, but if we have injuries and then our depth starts really getting tested and they break down like they've started to show significant signs of already this preseason, and if that offensive line can't hold together, and God forbid, worst case scenario, if Tua was to get hurt, whoa, man, this could be a really, really long season. Anyway, look, but see, that's the thing, right? And I know Dolphins fans hate to listen to it. It's one of the primary reasons that, I don't really have a lot of subscribers, because I don't do the flowery, always hopeful no matter what kind of bullshit, right? Like I don't just follow the process no matter what, right? But the reason why I put these things out there is because they are very real probabilities. I am a probabilities kind of person, right? So what my mind does is I logically think through multiple different scenarios, as many as I can grasp my head around, right? Based off of the information and the data and the context that I have, I try and identify as many different scenarios as I possibly can that could play out, and then I place probabilities on them, right? Which one has the highest probability? And then, I plan for that generally first. And then, of course, based off of my life experiences, I have a, prepare for the worst, hope for the best kind of mindset too. So that also plays into it. But I think about and prepare for all scenarios. The good scenarios are easy, right? I mean, if we're winning and having success, then I'm going to love it because we're winning and having success, right? If we don't have injuries and if we, that offensive line steps up and everything's all good. But unfortunately, that's not what the data is leading to, right? So I try and prepare people so that way, if and when, God forbid, knock on wood, whatever, it doesn't happen, or it does happen, you're at least prepared for it so you don't have a complete fucking meltdown. But, whatever, people just want to ignore me or, call me a hater because I'm trying to help people out and prepare them from the disaster that's coming, or, try and steer them away from it initially because I can see it coming, right? So, it is what it is. I digress and we move on. Missing his top wide receivers. The practice Wednesday was yet another for Tua without 3 of his top wide receivers. Actually, the 3 wide receivers listed as starters on the team's depth chart. Those 3, of course, are Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, and Albert Wilson. But Tagovailoa said it was no big deal that they're not practicing at this time. And look, that is the overall narrative. And I get it. Look, it's not, again, and I'll just say this, it's not that I don't understand the reasons that people give. If they're healthy and if they're capable and ready to go, I would love to have them practicing and gaining chemistry and rep time with their quarterback. Right? That's it. It's really that simple. I mean, if they're healthy, why the fuck not, man? Why the fuck not? I mean, and to be fair, I'm generally one of those people that says don't put players in unnecessarily if there's an injury, if there's a significant probability that they could sustain some sort of injury, right? But if they're plenty healthy to fucking practice, I mean, it's not even a game, right? Like, obviously decide on whether you want to play them in the preseason games, but it's not, and I understand them holding them out of the games more than I do the practices, right? Like, the games, okay, fine. Like, I could be on board with that, if you don't want it with the preseason games, if you don't want to take a chance of them getting hurt because you know that they're veterans and they're good, fine. But at least put them in fucking practice at some point, man. Anyway, that's just me. I get the other side of it. That's just me. Anyway, let me move on. I don't think it is a concern, Tagovailoa said. For me, I think the most important thing for them is their health, making sure that they're right. And I get that. But there's no indication, at least from what I can tell, there's no indication that any of these guys are, like, majorly hurt. They're just, like, they have something. To be fair, I guess, I don't know how, this is, to be fair to me, it's not really being fair to them because they won't tell us. Like, that's the thing, though, is a lot of this stuff we just don't know. So maybe the injury's more serious than we thought. Or maybe, it could just be a minor, like, soft tissue injury that they're just being, like, overly cautious about. But I don't know because they won't tell us about, like, any of these injury situations, right? So, I don't know. Whatever. For me, let's see. Because if they're not healthy, then that's going to be a concern. We won't have any of those guys to come out and play with. And I get that. I totally get that. And that's right. That's true. But again, to me, it doesn't seem like any of them are hurt so bad that they can't practice a little bit, right? Like, but okay, I guess, but it gives a lot of opportunity to the other guys for me to get work with them. Yeah, but at some point you got to get work with your top receivers, right? Like, he hasn't taken, like, I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna move on. I'm trying to move on. And for them also to experience a lot of the different looks, the coverages, whereas a lot of the veterans that are injured, they've seen a lot of that. We're all still in the same room. We're all still in the same meetings, communicating and talking through that, so I don't think it's all a concern. Yeah, it's good that they participate in the meetings and stuff or whatever, but whatever, man. I would love to just see them out there. We'll see, bro. We'll see. That's the thing. So everybody, that's the thing is every, and it's funny because I don't even know, like, my point is not even, right? Because everybody else's point on the other side is that they're not going to miss a step when we get to the regular season, right? Because they're veterans, and then, you know, we're going to give them ample time to get healthy and all this stuff that they're not going to miss a step whatsoever when they come back, right? That they're going to be fine, you know, maybe just shake off a little bit of rust, but they're going to be good. They're going to acclimate quickly, and there's really going to be no step, and then they're going to be healthy for the entire season. I'm not even like disputing that at all. I just literally want them to have time together, man. And right now there is time to be had, and they're not getting it. So, and you know, there is some chance that at least early on that there could be some rust to shake off, and maybe that, you know, causes some miscommunication or whatever, right? It could stall a drive or two. There is that possibility, actually. And as far as them, you know, not, you know, getting hurt, I mean, while they all have all these guys have, you know, relatively significant injury history, so, I mean, they could end up getting hurt no matter what, too. So, I don't know. I mean, I get it all. It just is what it is. Fuller has been out since the first practice of camp, while Parker and Wilson have been out of action for more than a week. None of the three played in the Dolphins preseason opener, and it's difficult to envision any of them playing. You know what? I think it's this video over here. That's what it was. You know what? Because my last video got demonetized, even though my channel is not monetized at all. But there was a copyright claim, and I figured out why. It's because of that video that was playing on the side, which means this video is probably going to as well. But it is what it is, so now I know. I just got to get rid of that ad. I had a feeling it was one of the ads that was playing. Anyway, let's see. They're day-to-day, and they're all working to get back, Flores said. With guys who have been out, you want to ease them back, but getting closer, I would say, just taking it one day at a time. All right. The absence of the three players has provided more opportunities for first-round pick Jalen Waddle, as well as some of the young receivers trying to earn a spot on the 53-man. On Wednesday, for example, both Robert Foster and Kirk Merritt had strong performances against the Falcons, while Matt Collins continued his really good training camp showing. Foster and Merritt, though, they got to make some plays in the game, man. That's the thing. You can have the strong practices, and that's good, but you gotta have these preseason games are going to be huge, because like those are two guys that, you know, I feel have been rising up the depth chart, but they didn't really do anything in the preseason game against the Bears, right? So anyway, moving on, because this is already a 22-minute video and I still got two more articles to get through. The Fry factor, the much discussed topic of who is calling. As you guys know, I can fucking talk like nobody's business. So the much discussed topic of who is calling the plays for the Dolphins and who talks to Tua through his headset came up again Wednesday. Tua indicated after the game Saturday that it's quarterbacks coach Charlie Fry who relays the play call, and Flores said Tuesday that it comes after a discussion involves several people, though he declined to say who was the final decision maker. Tua met Fry when he was in high school taking part in Elite 11 competition and remembered him from that time as a good guy and very fun to be around. Tua also said he enthusiastically endorsed the idea of the Dolphins hiring Fry this offseason when Flores brought it up to him. As for the dynamics of having only one voice in his headset, Tua said that's exactly how it was when he was at Alabama. I think that's something that they would discuss, but it's always one person coming and talking to our group at the quarterback room, Tua said, and I think it's very similar to here with Charlie. Charlie is the one that gives us the plays. He's the last person that we hear in our headset, and whatever discussion goes on between Charlie, Eric, and George, that's what they communicate, but the last person that we hear is just Charlie. So, yeah, man, I don't know. Look, at the end of the day, to me, when I evaluate this, as long as it works, I don't really care. You know, look, and I'll be honest, I was actually surprised to find out that there was more success than I had thought when there was like dual coordinators. You know, and of course, titles are just titles, right? You know, what are the actual jobs that they're performing and so on. But, you know, it's just a little weird to me, not just the double coordinator thing, but now that, you know, Fry is also somewhat a de facto offensive coordinator, and he's the one that's actually relaying. So it's like, it's just weird. It's just kind of weird to me. But, like, if it works, it works. And if it doesn't work, well, then I'm pretty sure, a lot of people, even if they support it now, are going to be like, oh, look, it fucking sucks. They were stupid. It was confusing, convoluted. And look, there's a reason to make that argument, right? Because it is weird. It is kind of convoluted, right? But we'll see how it plays out. So, anywho, let's go ahead and move on to the next. And I got to remember to get rid of these ads, because it's those ads that will ultimately cause me to be... let's see. Which one do I want, though? Do I want the... Which one is this? This is... Let's go through the training camp observations first, and then we'll do his little notebook, because they're kind of the same thing, sort of. All right, anyway, so this is obviously the 2021 training camp, August 18th practice, which is the 14th day of training camp, and their first practice with the Atlanta Falcons. So, Dolphin attendance report: Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, Albert Wilson, Isaiah Ford, and Sathan Carter in attendance, but not... so, hold on. Were those guys... So, I'm assuming he didn't specifically say. This is a little confusing. But, those guys were not there, is what I'm guessing. In attendance, but not practicing, Vince Beagle... because he's still got that boot on his foot, apparently, which is not good for him. Javaris Davis, Brandon Jones, Jesse Davis is back. Noah Igbenogany was wearing a red jersey. So, like I said, man, injuries / COVID are definitely, that's third on my list right now. But look, really, you could put it in any order. Injuries, COVID, depth on this roster, and offensive line are my top 3 issues. And continuing on with that, though, stupid ads. Linebacker Sam Iguavin also was absent after being placed on the reserve COVID-19 list. He becomes the 6th Dolphin player to have been placed on that list this summer, following Larnell Coleman, Mike Gesicki, Adam Shaheen, Sathan Carter, and Preston Williams. There's a new O-lineman at practice wearing 75, and guessing that's newcomer Greg Little, as one would expect given that he just joined the team. Little did very little in team drills, though he got in there at left tackle with the second team offense in a late 2-minute drill. Alrighty then. Honestly, I wasn't thrilled with the trade. If you guys watched my last video, I thought that it was pointless to give away a 7th round pick to get a guy that they probably could have gotten after he was cut. It turns out that pick, by the way, is a conditional 7th round pick, but it's the one that they received in the trade with Isaiah Wilson. They got a conditional 7th round pick and Isaiah Wilson for a 2021 7th round pick, right? So, in essence, they paid a 2021 7th round pick to get, both of these guys. Isaiah Wilson obviously didn't work out. We'll see how Greg Little does. But after I was on Reason's show and listened to him, and he showed some plays of Greg Little, man, I don't see why they don't take this offensive line seriously. They don't. They just clearly don't. They don't take it seriously at all. And it's... Man, that scares me for this team, for this season, and particularly for Tua, man, because... Woo! That boy is probably going to have to be running for his life a lot this year, and that's going to be super unfortunate. The first competitive drill featured receivers going one-on-one against linebacker or defensive backs, and Kirk Merritt abused cornerback Fabian Moreau with a double move before catching a long pass from Brissett. Sinnott threw a perfect back shoulder throw downfield to Grant, but Grant failed to catch it. Unfortunately, I like the kid, man, but he does got to make those catches. Brissett had a nice completion down the middle to Foster on a play where he might have been sacked in a real game. Almost simultaneously, Brissett threw a bullet down the middle to Kirk Merritt in a 7-on-7 period, and Nick Needham picked off Felipe Franks on the far field. Grant fumbled after catching a pass from Tua. It's unfortunate. Tua threw a 45-yard touchdown pass to Salvan Ahmed down the right sideline after Ahmed got behind the Atlanta defender. Malcolm Perry came back with a nice high-pointing catch on a high throw by Tua. Cornerback Crevan LeBlanc came up with Dolphins' second interception in a 7-on-7. This one after it was tipped by Atlanta receiver. Jakeem Grant went down on a kickoff return and is limping a bit. He returned another kickoff shortly thereafter. Jalen Waddle dropped a perfectly thrown pass by Tua on the first play of an 11-11 period. That's not good. Jalen Phillips got snaps with first team defense. So it's good that he's, back and it seems to be ramping up. Tua did a nice job stepping up in the pocket after getting pressure from the outside, both sides, so the left and the right side. Ah, boy, oh boy, this offensive line, man. Brissett had to stop to play after pressure. Had to stop the play after pressure. Waddle made a spectacular leaping grab of a Tua pass thrown behind him. LeBlanc gave up a long completion, but came back the next play to make a diving pass breakup. Rookie Trill Williams wrapped up 11-on-11 on the far field by breaking up a long pass attempt. Tua starts off a 7-on-7 red zone drill with a nice throw down the seam to Adam Shaheen. Like he should have tried early on the play against the Bears that resulted in his interception. Yeah, well, see, he learned from it, right? So good for you. Let's not make that mistake again. And he seems to be pretty good at that, right? Not making similar mistakes. So Tua started off a red zone 11-11 period with a touchdown throw to a wide open Shaheen on a play that looks similar, except to the opposite side to the touchdown the Dolphins gave up against Chicago. I think it's just kind of a repeat. Matt Ryan threw a touchdown pass to Calvin Ridley on a slant with Xavier Howard in coverage on the short slant. So yeah, Xavier got beat on one. It happens. Durham Smythe failed to come up with the catch on a low throw that Tua tried to fit in between defenders. Smythe came back on the next play to catch a touchdown pass from Brissett on a crossing route. Robert Foster, who had a really good practice, caught 2 touchdown passes in red zone 11-on-11. Jason Sanders nailed a 50-yard field goal attempt. The team did a 2-minute drill with Atlanta offense starting and everybody on the same field. Matt Ryan completes the first 3 passes and looks good in the process. After an incompletion, Ryan connects with Tajay Sharp despite tight coverage by Howard. By the way, in this game, we'll see how long the starters play. I think they'll probably go a little bit longer than what they did last week. But expect Matt Ryan to play significantly better than Andy Dalton. Because Matt Ryan is a significantly better quarterback than Andy Dalton. So, I'm just saying. He could play our first team defense better than what Andy Dalton did. I would expect him to. So, that'll be a better test for our first team defense than playing against Andy Dalton. Ryan throws to the end zone for first round pick Kyle Pitts, but Eric Rowe breaks up at the last moment. Good for Rowe. Looking at Ryan, of course, we can't help but wonder whether he'd still be with the Dolphins had they taken him with the first pick of the 2018 draft instead of Jake Long. Alrighty. Tua begins the Dolphins' offense's 2-minute drill with a completion down the middle to Jakeem Grant. Kirk Merritt got snaps with the first-team offense in that drill. Dolphins defense gave up a 60-yard touchdown pass from A.J. McCarron to Juwan Green. Brissett had a beautiful throw down the... it doesn't say if that's first team or second team. Obviously, if it's first team, then, no good for first team. You can't have that. But if it's second team, then that would be on par with what, we've seen to this part. It's mostly been the second and third team that have been getting burnt that bad. But again, that would go to my concern for the depth on this team. So it depends. He doesn't say which unit it was against. Anyway, Brissett had a beautiful throw down the middle to Smythe, who later was stripped by the Atlanta defender, though the ball went out of bounds. Brissett later had another nice throw downfield to Merritt, who continues to have a strong camp. Foster went up to catch a pass from Brissett in the back of the end zone and did a great job of getting his feet in bounds. All right, we have one more. I will need to make sure to get rid of those as we go. One more from him, although it's likely to be probably very similar. One of the plays that's because this is just a Dolphins notebook. One of the plays that stood out was on Wednesday, late minute against the Falcons, came late during a 2-minute period match. The Atlanta offense against the Miami defense, veteran quarterback. So well, and that's the thing. I think that was in the 2-minute period. So I think it actually was against there's a chance it was against the first team unit. He talks about when Matt Ryan threw a 15-yard pass toward the back of the end zone. Prized rookie Kyle Pitts, who appeared ready to come down with the catch, but Eric Rowe obviously broke it up. But safety Eric Rowe knocked the ball away last second. It was one of the many battles the two would have on this day, and Rowe came away impressed with the Falcons tight end, a player who was mentioned as a possibility for the Dolphins in the 2021 draft until they traded out of the 3rd spot to move down to 12th and eventually back up to 6th. Going in, the only thing I knew is he was a high draft pick and that he was like a receiver, Rowe said. After today, it showed what people had been saying. He's got good movement. Obviously, he's still learning, but he's a good player. You can see the potential, the way he moves. I know he's still just a rookie, but you can see when someone has talent. Rowe and Pitts will see each other again Thursday and in the regular season as well, with Atlanta scheduled to come to Hard Rock Stadium on October 4th. See, and that's one of the things actually that's going to be the most interesting for me about this week against the Falcons, because we are actually going to play them. So look, they didn't play Pitts last week. Kyle Pitts didn't play in their first preseason game. I hope that he does play, and I hope that we actually get to see maybe like an entire half of starters out there, or maybe even at least an entire quarter, right, from both sides, right, from us and the Falcons, because I would like to get a good look at the starting units on both sides of the field, because we're going to actually, now, both teams are going to make adjustments, and they're going to look differently when they play each other, right? There are going to be some injuries, whatever. Hopefully not too bad. But, it's still going to be interesting because we do actually play them, and as he mentioned, on October 24th. It's the kind of matchup that Rowe cherishes. He said earlier this year he's already looking forward to his rematch against Raiders tight end Darren Waller, who had over 100 receiving yards last December against the Dolphins, despite good coverage by Rowe when Miami travels to Las Vegas on September 26th. Yeah, I mean, he was just, in that game, Waller just proved to be the superior athlete, because there were some tough catches, but he came down with them. Rowe is going to present a similar type of challenge as Waller based on what we saw Wednesday. It was good work today, Rowe said. It's good to see a tight end who moves like a receiver. I feel like that's good for me to see. A lot of tight ends, they are evolving into that in the league, and it's great to get practice against them. Ryan reflections of Flores. While watching the Falcons at practice, it was impossible not to wonder for a second whether Matt Ryan, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. We're not going to talk about that. Ryan is heading into his 14th NFL season, and he's old enough to have been teammates at Boston College with Dolphins head coach Brian Flores. When Flores was senior at BC in 2003, Ryan was a redshirt freshman. The two texted recently ahead of the joint practices this week. Flores said, I know you've seen everything, so I put in some new stuff for you, Ryan said after practice Wednesday per the Falcons website. I asked him not to treat me like he did in the 2003 scout team at BC. They had a few different things today. Okay. Brian was kicking my ass when I was on a scout team. He was a good player back then. As soon as he went to New England as a scout, with how professional he always was, he's quiet, a hard worker, and a good teammate. He was good to me as a freshman coming in. I'm happy for him. He has worked hard to get to this position and deserves everything that comes his way. Yep, you reap what you sow. Little trade update. The day after the Dolphins acquired tackle Greg Little from Carolina, GM Scott Fitterer met with the media to address various topics related to his team. One of those topics was the Little trade. I think it's good for Greg, Fitterer said, per Sports Illustrated, blah, blah, blah. We get something in return. Dolphins GM Chris Greer is a good friend of mine, and I've been talking to him on and off for probably the last month and a half, 2 months, about several different things. They had some injuries. They called yesterday, and it all happened fairly quickly. I felt the time was right. I knew where Greg stood on our team. He'll have a great opportunity in Miami, and we wish him well. Little, wearing 75, took part in practice for the Dolphins on Wednesday on a limited basis, but did get some snaps with the second-team offense in a late 2-minute period. Whew. All right, so that's a lot. Yeah, and I talk a lot as usual, and I probably talked about things nobody cares about or wants to hear, whatever. It is what it is. It is what it is. I got to keep it real with you, and, you know, all this stuff is relevant and is important, and so, yeah. But with that, there you go. That's what I got from the news and notes. Tomorrow we do obviously have another joint practice with the Falcons, so I'll be back for, you know, day 15 of training camp. I'm not sure if training camp goes into next week, or if training camp's officially over and then they just, you know, do like regular practices for before the I don't know. But we have our practice tomorrow, and then I'll just stick with this. We have our practice tomorrow, and it's another joint practice against the Falcons, so I'll be back with the news and notes from that. We'll see how that goes, and then we'll get to put our eyes on this team on Saturday. Again, Saturday, it's a Saturday game against the Falcons at Hard Rock Stadium, and we will get to see their defensive front is not as imposing as the Bears, so we'll see how that goes. But I do think on the opposite side, Matt Ryan is definitely the superior quarterback to Andy Dalton, and I think that their offense is likely going to have a better time or better opportunities against our first team defense than what the Bears showed last week. So you know, we'll see how that plays out, but it is going to be really fascinating and another piece to this puzzle. My expectation, though, is that, you know, this offensive line, man. Anyway, you guys know how I feel. We'll see how it plays out after this week. But at the end of the day, as usual, I don't get into my feelings until we actually start the regular season and it counts. But I do have, you know, pretty significant concerns for it, and I just don't feel like this organization and coaching staff or whatever is taking it anywhere near serious enough. I feel like that I really feel like they just think whoever it is that we have, man, we're gonna make it work and it's gonna be just fine. And I don't think that's going to be the case, unfortunately. And that could be that alone could be the Achilles heel for this Dolphins team. Let alone the potential other issues. But yeah, so with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comments section. Of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Phins up.